All right. Hi, everybody. I want to take a few minutes to kind of show you how to go from your methods plan to your results. So by the end of the methods plan, you should have a table that looks somewhat like this. Just to review, this kind of what we've been going over in class as our examples. So the research question is, what are the mental health consequences for experiencing racial microaggressions across different industries? So my independent variable is industry, and I'm using the identities lawyer, doctor, and engineer. And I'm using the behaviors undermine and patronize to kind of get that element of the microaggression in there, and then adding the modifier black to the object identity to capture the racial component. Okay, so I ended up with a table that looks like this. And so essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of these and go to interact and simulate them. But first we want to kind of create in a spreadsheet where we can record this information and our results in a little bit of a better way. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to switch over to my Google Sheet here. Okay. So now what I would do is just basically paste that right in here. And so you can see everything's in its right place: lawyer, undermine, black lawyer, lawyer, patronize, black lawyer, lawyer, devalue, black lawyer. I'm gonna get rid of devalue just because we don't need to do all of that for the example. Okay. So now that I have my events here, what I'm gonna do is go over to interact. There it is. Okay. Okay, so it's working on something else. Person one is a lawyer. Let me go. Oh, gotta switch this. First, put on USA Command Surveyor to make sure we're on the right one. And so what we're gonna do is go to lawyer for our first one. And then second is also a lawyer, but we're adding the object modifier black. Okay. And so now I'm going to go to define events, and I'm going to put in undermine. Okay, so now I insert this event, and I go over to analyze events, and I tell interact, okay, run that one. So what it's giving me is the deflection here. And if you remember, the left column is all of the stuff about our actors. So this is telling us about the lawyer that did the undermining, and the object emotions are the black lawyer who was undermined. And so if I'm interested in object emotions as my way of capturing mental health, what I'll want to do is take these three numbers. I'm just going to copy them, and I'm going to go back over to my spreadsheet over here and put them in. Okay, and then the closest terms in interact, you can go through and find the closest ones. I'm not going to do that right now just because it's in some other videos. And so what you want to do is essentially do that for every single one of these, but just for time's sake, I kind of already went through and got those, and so I'm just going to copy and paste these other ones and the closest terms. Okay, so after you've done all of the simulations, then what you'll end up having is this somewhat more complete table where now we've got our values, but we want to know a little bit what's a good way to like actually see what's going on here. Like, so one way is just to look at the closest terms, and we can start to see some interesting stuff. It seems like there's a big difference between lawyers and doctors and engineers, but not as big of a difference between doctors and engineers, which is sort of interesting. But maybe it's a little bit hard to see exactly what's going on here. And so we'll want to make a plot to show that. Okay, so when we're looking at something like the outcome of emotions or the optimal behavior, you're going to want to show the actual EPA values and not just the closest terms in your plots, because that will show a lot more of the sort of like precise details that are going on that are generating those outcomes. And so what you have here is essentially a subset for each one of those dimensions: evaluation, potency, and then activity. And what you want to do is essentially go through each one of these and change the IV to your main independent variable values and your events into your behaviors, essentially. Okay, so I said my independent variable is industry, and I captured that with lawyer, doctor, and engineer. So what I can do is I change my IV value 1 to lawyer, because my independent variable is the industry, and I want to put the exact values that I'm using here. So I'll put lawyer, and then doctor, and then engineer. And I can do that for each one of these. 3. And then for the events, so you can see for each one of these, I have both undermine and patronize. So what I'm going to want to do is just change this to undermine and this one to patronize. And I don't need event 3 because I didn't do a third behavior. So I can do the same thing here and here, and erase that, and then here and here, and erase that. So now the last step is going through and actually taking these values and putting them into the right spots in the cell. So what I want to do is I want to find for lawyer, undermine, patronize, I want the evaluation. So I'm just going to copy and paste this right here. And then for doctor, I want to do the same thing. So for doctor, undermine and patronize for evaluation are these two. And then for engineer, it's the bottom two. And so I want to do that for each one of these columns. So this is evaluation, this one's potency, and this one's activity. So if we do the same thing, take potency here, put it in, and do that for doctor, and then do it for engineer. And then last, I'm going to do the same thing for activity. Down here, activity. Okay, so now what we can do is we can tell Google Sheets, okay, I want a plot of each of these. I think I want these to be closer. Okay, so you highlight the stuff that you want in the plot, and then you go to Insert, Chart. And so this will go ahead and kind of create a nice chart for you, but there are ways that we can make it a bit more easy to read, I guess. So first, we'll just change the chart title to evaluation, because we already kind of capture the lawyer, the doctor, and the engineer part with the colors. And then one thing I really like to add is under series, if you go down and you add data labels, then this will add the actual values in there, which I think can be really helpful. Okay, so there's evaluation, and now what we can do is just add one of those for each one of them. So we'll go here and press Insert Chart, and you'll see that these ones go down, and that's because the potency after being undermined or patronized is always negative. And so we can do the same thing here, where we just change this to potency. And then I'll go over to series and add my data labels so we can see those. And then we'll do that for activity. Chart. Activity. And then you'll want to do series, data labels. Okay. Okay. So now that we have our 3 charts, it's a little bit easier to look at the major differences between them. So the thing that kind of jumps out to me is the big potency differences, especially between doctors and the other ones, and especially between doctors and engineers and lawyers. And so this is a way of making those figures to add into your results and finals analysis kind of section. And so if you're doing like a deflection outcome rather than evaluation, or rather than optimal behaviors or emotions as an outcome, then the really nice thing is you won't have to make 3 plots, you can just make 1. So for example, if I was interested in the Germany US kind of sexual harassment ideal, I would do the same thing that I did over here, but since I'm getting the deflection, which is just 1 value rather than all 3 of evaluation, potency, and activity, I just have one column for my deflection. And I ended up doing 3 behaviors here. And I also changed the modifiers to either be male or female. So what I did here is my main independent variable is the culture. So I have Germany is in one column and US is at the other column. And then I just split my events kind of by whether it was a male boss harassing a female employee or a female boss harassing a male employee. And so then after that, you do the same thing where you press insert chart. And this will make essentially the chart I already have below, but you can do all the same stuff here where I ended up not changing the title, but you probably should make it more informative. Something like likelihood of place harassment across okay, by gender and culture. Okay, so this indicates that our biggest sort of independent variables are culture, which we're capturing here, and then gender, which we capture sort of by the first half and the second half. And so again, we can add our nice little data labels. Not a bad idea to maybe round these a little bit more than I did, just so they can show up better. But again, this can help you make a figure that shows your results in a clean way.